Today we're going to go over the legacy of the Roman Empire. Our essential question is, to what extent have the contributions of ancient Rome influenced modern society? So how has Rome stuck around over time? Our goal is to be able to delineate or kind of itemize the major contributions of the Roman Empire and how they relate to modern society. Firstly, we have the legacy of Roman art. So the Romans were artisans, so they were artists by trade. A lot of Roman art is considered Greco-Roman or from the Greco-Roman tradition because it really looks like Greek art and architecture. So we have things in our modern day that are still left over from Rome, like mosaics, very accurate sculptures, frescoes or murals, decorative glass, gem cutting, and metalwork. So a lot of these things are passed down through generations, and they made it to today. Roman art was rediscovered during the Renaissance, so that was around the 1500s, and a lot of the style kind of had more life in this time period. So in addition to the artistic parts of Roman architecture, we have the engineering, so kind of the science and the structural part of what they built. So the Romans started to perfect or attempted to perfect the arch, the vault, and the dome, and many variations of that. They were the first civilization to create large concrete buildings, first to make that material widespread. You can see this very large building in modern-day Lebanon, which was a Roman place of worship, and you can see just the sheer size and what engineering feats that would have taken to build. They also influenced medieval architecture, especially the churches and cathedrals. You can still see Roman and Greek style architecture in many major cities around the world, including the United States. The Capitol building in Washington, D.C. is a very good example of a U.S. building with many Roman influences. The Romans were also great engineers. So along with the artistic part of their buildings, we have like very accurate builders. So they were great builders of roads, bridges, and aqueducts. So you can see the Roman aqueducts, they were able to take a reservoir or some water and send it really far to their city. So I think up to 60 miles was one of their largest aqueducts. People still drive over Roman roads to this day. Our modern highways are influenced by the Romans and how they set up their road system. They set a new standard for building these aqueducts, as I mentioned, which brought water, again, over very long distances. And here's how we might do it in a modern time. We also have a legacy of language and writing. So this is one of our best examples of Roman lettering. And here's like some cursive Roman language written on a plate, so it's much more kind of scribbled, harder to read. But Latin survived after the fall of Rome in the surrounding areas, and it influenced many different languages like English, Italian, French, Spanish. Scribes created important documents that lasted throughout time and preserved Latin. Many of our English words come from Latin roots, so one core part of the word has a Latin prefix or suffix or root in the center. Roman numerals is still something that you'll see today. Many times you'll see them on clocks or in chapters of books. We have the legacy of Roman philosophy, law, and citizenship. So Stoicism is a philosophy where people are asked to live rightly, meaning that they agree to the laws of nature. They believe in the virtues of self-control and courage. Here's a famous quote from Seneca. Perhaps the worst will happen, perhaps not. But until then, look forward to better things. So it's kind of an optimistic, virtuous style of living the right way according to the laws of nature. Law and justice. So Roman law is influenced by this philosophy, but Roman law covered things like marriage, inheritance, contracts, things that in ancient times weren't as common. And we also have this universal law of justice that every person born has these natural rights according to the laws of nature. Again, to go back to Stoicism. So you see Lady Justice, blind Justice. You see she has a blindfold on here, and she's weighing what is right versus what is wrong. Here's another example of a very detailed example of Lady Justice. And Romans also started to develop the idea of citizenship, so they began extending citizenship to all free people in the empire. So not everyone had a say, but they began this idea that if you were a part of a particular empire or province, then you deserved a say in how it was run. This idea of citizenship extends to today, the idea that being a citizen is a privilege and a responsibility that descends from Roman ideas. So the idea in the United States that we need to vote, and it's our responsibility to do that, comes from Rome originally.